Thank God I tweezed the chin hairs. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Paroma Sharma and this is my little rectangle where I share a little bit of my life with you. And today is a very special video because today is the Q&A. I'm so excited. There are actually a lot more questions than I expected there would be, so I'm going to try to keep it as short and concise as possible. There are actually a lot of questions with like proper substance, just like I had asked. So I asked on Instagram and everyone submitted questions there. I got about 2 questions from the YouTube comments, but most of the questions were from Instagram. So they're going to be in 3 segments. I'm going to do the light, weird, funny, random, just me personally kind of questions first, and then we're going to go into the risky, serious, maybe a little bit scandalous questions. I went into this saying that I was going to answer every question in some form or another, and so that's what I plan on doing. Then the last segment is actually going to be the questions that pertain to both myself and my husband. So I have convinced him to join me, and you guys will see that he'll join me towards the end of the video at the last segment. By the way guys, I've seen some people do Q&As where they actually like read out the name or the username of the person that submitted the question, but I didn't ask them for their permission, so I don't want to necessarily like name them without having asked them. You learn as you go, you know. So without further ado, let's dive into this because I don't know how long it's gonna take. Diving right into it. Number 1, favorite food. Okay, so I'm a Desi food junkie. My favorite food, I would say, would have to be Bangali food, and it's bharta and dal and bhat. So I like dal, bharta, and bhat. That's like pretty much it, like my go-to. Nothing beats like a good plate of like heaping bhat, so heaping rice, and then like a dollop of like nice runny dal on it, and dal is lentil curry, and then like an assortment of bhartas. Bharta is basically Bengali for like a mushed up concoction, kind of like mashed potatoes. So then potato is aloo in Bangla, so then mashed potatoes is aloo bharta, but then you can kind of puree and season anything really, and Bengalis are like so good at that. So like I think my favorite bharta is like aloo bharta, begun bharta, which is like potato and eggplant, and dhone pata bharta. It's almost like a chutney. It's so good. Dhone pata is coriander. Okay, next. Where are you from in Bangladesh? So let me put this really simply. My mom and dad, my ammu and abu, met in Chittagong in Bangladesh, and that's where they got married and I was born. So I was born in Chittagong, but my dad, like my abu, is originally Dhakaya, so they were just like living in Chittagong at the time. So he's actually from like Puran Dhaka. So my dada bari, my like paternal grandfather, they're all from Puran Dhaka. So technically, if I'm their daughter and in that lineage and the way that it works in our culture and whatnot, I'm Dhakaya, but I was born in Chittagong, so I take great pride in also just like saying I'm Chittagongian. However, in terms of like, and when we go to Bangladesh, we always live in Dhaka, but in terms of like Desher Bari, which is like where is your like family village home, we're from Faridpur, and I say we're from Faridpur because I am closer to my mom's side of the family, and my mom and her dad's side of the family are all from Faridpur, from a village called Bhangatana, and that's where if I had to choose like a Desher Bari, like a village home, like a heritage home, that would be it. So I would say I'm from Faridpur, but I live in Dhaka, but I was born in Chittagong. You know what I mean? Okay, moving on to the next one. Don't you like my compliments? Why don't you reply to me? Okay, fair enough, fair enough. That's actually, it's a legitimate question. It's not that I don't like compliments. Of course, I love compliments. I love compliments from women. I love compliments from men. Who doesn't like a compliment, right? However, I've been dating my husband for 6 years and now we're married, right? So a lot of that time, a lot of my presence on social media, I was already like committed to one person. My commitment is that I don't entertain any other kinds of compliments or any other kinds of like flirtatious interactions with other men. And that's really all it boils down to. If you're giving me a clean, nice compliment like I love your smile or I love your eyes or your hair looks great, just know that I see it and it does make me feel good. Thank you very, very much for all that love and support, but I don't reply back to it because that's me taking an active step to interact with someone of the opposite sex, which is fine. It's just I don't need those kinds of relationships in my life, and because that place in my life, the person that makes me feel good, the person that like tells me I'm beautiful, the person that like uplifts me and like, you know, all that good stuff is one person, and that's my husband, and that's why I just don't respond back. But that in no way means that I do not appreciate all the love that comes my way. And I am officially saying thank you to you for those compliments. Thank you so, so, so much for all the love and support that you give me. The next question, how are you? I'm good. I'm good. I'm actually great. You know, I'm counting every single blessing that I have. I'm sitting here and I'm just watching the world go by on the outside and understanding all the chaos that's going on around the world. And I'm just trying to keep my head on straight and do my part in being safe, but also do my part in staying happy. And I'm really happy. Thank you for asking. Favorite country I've visited? I think this one's from Arpi. I haven't visited like a whole lot. I've traveled quite a bit, but somehow it's just not been like a bunch of countries or anything under my belt. I really enjoyed my Amsterdam trip because that was a solo trip. I traveled my heart out on that trip, and I met new people along the way, forged new friendships, and it was just such a wholesome experience. So I'd say experience-wise, I really, really enjoyed Amsterdam the most, which was my solo trip in December 2018. A country that like I really like a place that I visited that I really enjoyed. I enjoyed the scenery, I enjoyed everything it had to offer, was Antigua. And I think Saurav and I had gone to Antigua during like an off season. I think we went in like May. May was just like a low season, so it was really quiet. Most of the attractions were closed and everything, but I still absolutely loved that trip. Antigua as my favorite place that I visited, and Amsterdam as my favorite experience. Okay, so my favorite moment from my wedding. There are so many. I have to choose like the top 2 or something. Number 1 was on my Mehndi night. I think it was a Thursday because my holud, my haldi, was on the Friday. So Thursday night, we just had like friends and family over, and it was very like Ghorowa, which is like Bangla for just like very homely, very low-key, just like, you know, close people. It wasn't like a big party or anything like that. I remember that I had henna on both my hands, and actually shout out to Monica. Monica was doing my henna, so I was sitting there, Monica was sitting in front of me. Everyone had left the house to go receive my in-laws and my husband, who were in the driveway. So they took like sweets and stuff, and they all lined the driveway to receive the groom's party. There was this moment when I was just like kind of sitting by myself because like, but the henna artist was doing her stuff, so she was really concentrating on that, I think. Or maybe she even like got up to like take a break at that point. I don't really remember. And I remember it was Sajanji Karai that was playing on the loudspeakers inside my living room. And there was some auntie that was like drumming to it too. And I was just sitting there and I was like, this is like my ultimate Bollywood fantasy. Most girls have imagined their wedding, and here I was sitting in that moment thinking back to 3 years prior to that, when there was just a lot of tension regarding our relationship and where it was headed and what we were gonna do, when were we gonna get married, where were we gonna get married, how the logistics were gonna work out. Is it possible to have everyone under one roof one day, just amicably, just happy, just celebrating with all their blessings and love for us? Was it ever gonna happen? And I was sitting there with my henna and I was thinking, it's happening right now, you know? And like that was like a really surreal moment for me, and I got really emotional. Another really favorite moment would have to be I very tactfully chose my entrance song as one that I knew that my husband would get emotional about. I just knew it. And also I love the song, and also the lyrics just like went with everything that was going on. He was crying, everyone was crying, because it was just one of those songs I chose. And so he was crying too. And I think like that moment, like seeing him like walking in, I'm crying, everyone's crying, he's also crying. And then seeing the videos after of like how emotional he got and like how emotional everyone else was while I was walking in, it was just like a really, really memorable moment. And so I'd say those two things, like that moment alone by myself, there are so many, guys, so many. I could go on about this forever, but those are the two that I'm gonna stick to. Now moving on, how old am I and what's my favorite hobby? Like what do I like doing to just like pass time? I am 29 years old. I'd say that my favorite time pass activity changes, but if I had to choose like my current right now, like what I'm really currently into is watching Mr. Kate videos and Lone Fox videos on YouTube. Oh my god. They basically do like DIY decor and stuff, and I think their aesthetic is just like mine. So currently my favorite like passing time activity hobby is to watch DIY decor videos on YouTube. And what is my occupation? I am a trained paralegal. For those of you who might not know what a paralegal is, a paralegal is basically to a lawyer what a nurse is to a doctor. So I'm a trained paralegal and I work in the legal sector. Okay, next question. What were your teen years like? Were you a shy or outgoing person? I was a troubled teen. I definitely gave my mom a lot of headache during my teen years. Nothing like too exceptional. All the regular crap, you know, like having crushes on guys or like hanging out too late with my friends, like all of those things, but I definitely gave her like a lot of headache. I wanted to dress up, I wanted to go out, especially in the summertime. I wanted to take my bike out, I wanted to hang out with my girls and just go out and have fun. So all of those kinds of things, just like the regular teen troubles, I was definitely a troubling teen, but nothing like out of the ordinary. Like I never ran away from home, crashed a car. Was I a shy or outgoing teen? I was definitely an outgoing teen. I feel like I'm still outgoing. I have been outgoing since the moment I was born. There still isn't a shy bone in my body. I'm not a shy person. I will say though, as I've matured, like as I've grown older, I've become more reserved about the outgoing side of me. I'm equal parts outgoing and equal parts like introvert, I guess, so extrovert and introvert now. But definitely in my teen years, I was not at all shy. I was definitely outgoing. I was 100% an extrovert. How many siblings do you have? We'll dive more into this question about my parents in a little bit, but I have my younger brother, so it's just me and my younger brother, Armando. And then from my stepfather, I have a stepbrother, and who is younger than me but older than my brother Armando. And from my biological father's side, him and my stepmother have 2 children. So I have 2 half siblings, a half brother who's little, and a half sister as well. I'm the eldest of all of them. So I have 1 full sibling, which is Anando, my baby brother, and then I have a stepbrother and I have 2 half siblings. It's a little bit chaotic, but like, I love it. And I always say it like that. Whenever I get asked how many siblings I have, I always say it like this. If I have the opportunity and the time to explain it, I always include all of them. But you know, sometimes when it's like an insignificant question or it's kind of just like in passing or whatever, I'll just say I have 1 brother because I have 1 full biological brother. Talk about your elementary school more. Love your vlogs. Thank you so much. It's so wild to me that someone could possibly like watching me and like, you know, watching me talk and like rant for like a whole day. It's wild, but thank you so much. That means a lot to me. Talk more about your school, your elementary school. I feel like I could go on about it for like ages, but I feel like maybe like everyone doesn't want to hear about that. Although I really like the question, I feel like the answer might not interest everyone. But I will say very quickly that like my elementary school days or like my school days were, there are stark contrasts in my childhood. So on the one hand, there were darker parts to it, and my reality was shaky in some way. And then in another part, parallel to that, my life was magical because my mom, she is a very artistic person. My mom is like an extremely artistic person, and like I get all my DIYs, everything. Like I grew up in this atmosphere. This is what it was, and my childhood was just like, you know,
like warm afternoon sun like coming through the window on like a table that has a bunch of paint and arts and crafts and stuff.
My elementary days were filled with encouragement from my family to really create and keep those creative and imagination like juices flowing in your brain. And so like that was my life, and tying that in with my elementary school days is just like a one package, beautiful, blissful deal. And I have some of the fondest and actually some of the clearest memories from that time, which is like so weird. Where did you go to school? High school, elementary? So you saw where I went. In one of my vlogs I mentioned I went to Grenoble Public School. That was the first school I ever attended, so it was when I was wee little, all the way through to grade 5, which was the last class that was facilitated at Grenoble Public School. And after that you graduated onto middle school, so I went to Don Mills Public School, which is a middle school just like a bus ride away from that neighborhood. And I went there for grade 6, and then shortly after that we moved to downtown Toronto from Don Mills in Eglinton. And when we moved downtown Toronto, we had to go into a different school, and so then I did grade 7 and grade 8 at St. Paul's. For grade 9, I ended up going to St. Joseph's College School, which is an all-girls Catholic school, and it's also downtown Toronto. So that's basically it. And then I graduated from there, and then I went to U of T. Where do you live in Toronto? So funny enough, I actually don't live in Toronto anymore. I used to. My mom's house is in Toronto, so she lives in Scarborough. That's where I used to live. But now I live in the suburbs, so I live just outside of Toronto. We live in the Durham region, so it's like east of Toronto. And like this encompasses like Pickering and like Ajax and Oshawa and like Whitby. So yeah, this is the area that we live in, which is the suburbs just east of the city of Toronto. Let's dive into some of the more serious, thoughtful, scandalous, risky questions that you guys had for me. Number 1, do you swing? Is the first question. No, my husband and I are not swingers. We do not swing. Has there ever been anything meaningful that you wanted to say to someone but lost the chance? This one's from my stepbrother. That's a very good question, Farhan. That's a really, really good question. I'm really impressed with that question. Oh, this is gonna be a good one. Yeah. Yeah, I think when my parents divorced when we were younger, I think I was 10 when they separated. And when my dad packed his things and like moved out, that day I realized he was moving out. And I feel like some part of me wanted to ask my dad to stay, and he packed his stuff up, and somehow I didn't ask him to stay, because I don't know if I have just like matured beyond my years at 11 or something. A part of me really wanted to say it, and another part of me was afraid, what if he didn't listen to me? Like, what if it just wasn't important enough? Like me telling my father not to pack his things and leave us, would he listen to me? And was I really up for handling the rejection? Like, imagine I said it and my dad like still packed all his stuff and left, you know? Don't get me wrong, it's definitely not something that like weighs heavy on my heart at night and stuff, because I don't know if he would have stopped and stayed if I had asked him to, but if he stayed, a lot of good things that happen in our lives would not have happened. So yeah, that's one of the things I feel like I really wanted to say, and it was really meaningful. I wanted to say, Abu, don't pack your things and don't leave. But again, I was afraid of the rejection, and I was also afraid, like, what if he does stay? And then they're just like unhappy forever, and I did this. You know what I mean? So it all worked out for the best, but if there's one thing that I had to choose that was really meaningful that I wanted to say, but I never got the chance to say, it was definitely that. Another question. Before marriage, did you guys have any relationships? And then details that ensued. So like what race these people were, who they were, and also another question that was tied in with this question was, and if I had not married my husband, who from my past relationships would I have married? Like, let's be as candid as possible here. My husband and I we're very fortunate that we got to know a lot of different kinds of people in our lives. I'm not gonna say date, I'm not gonna say fell in love, I'm not gonna say had a relationship, but we were lucky enough to meet different kinds of men and women and forge different kinds of friendships and relationships before we came together, because that gave us an immensely good idea of who we wanted and what characteristics we wanted in our forever partners. If I was not with Saurav, who would I be with? It's just, he's it for me. Like, Saurav is it. Like, he's my husband. That's it. He's all I want in a partner. So if it wasn't Saurav, it wouldn't be anyone. Details in terms of like race, whether I dated, who I dated, those are just things that are like really unnecessary. None of that stuff is necessary, number one. Number two, our marriages, our Desi marriages, are still very culturally rooted, and they're still very conservative. So this institution of marriage, at least for me, I don't speak for everyone, but for me, my marriage is just so important, and it's so holy and so sacred to me that like everything that happened before it is just a moot point. And I would never sit down and disrespect it by taking the name of like other men, because like Saurav supersedes everyone that I've ever come to know, and that's why I married him. It's as simple as that. Have I ever gotten depression? I've never like clinically been diagnosed, and no one's ever said like you actually have depression and these are symptoms of depression. But nowadays, when like there's more mental health awareness, more conversation about it, and more people are talking about it, also I've had to deal with loved ones having depression, and I feel like I don't want to say I went through it with them, because I think the devastation that I saw that they felt when they were going through depression was like, I can't even pretend to understand that, so I'm not going to. You really do ride the depression wave with someone if they are your loved one. So by those means, I really, as I was more exposed to it in life in recent years, as there was more conversation about it, and as I was exposed to it more with my loved ones having it, and when I saw the symptoms up close and personal, I realized that maybe there were some points in my life, maybe like one period in my life where I was like actually depressed, but I just didn't know at that time. Maybe at one point in my life, I have had depression. I think I was maybe around like 21, 22, around that time. It wasn't like really chronic. Your mom seems cool. Thank you. She is. She's one of my best friends. What about your dad? I'm still in touch with my dad. I see him, well, not right now because it's lockdown, but ever since they did split up, I used to see my dad every week. My brother and I would see my dad, so since the age of 11, I'm gonna say until like 4 years ago. So for a big chunk of our life, we'd see my dad every single week. He took his days off on Mondays, and so Mondays would be the days that we'd go out for dinner, so my brother and I would join him, and slowly that dynamic changed. He got married, he had a daughter, and then she grew up, and then 6 years later, I think, he had a son, and so like our weekly outings used to initially just be my brother, my abu, my father, and I, and then slowly it ended up being plus my stepmom, who's a great human being. I love her. She's an awesome person. And then slowly plus my little sister, and then plus my little brother, my half brother. My real dad has not played a whole lot in necessarily like raising me actively on a day-to-day basis, because he wasn't under the same roof as myself, my younger brother, and my nanny, who lived with us full time. Next to my mom, my nanny has played a bigger role in raising myself and my brother, because she was always around. But just because my dad didn't live under the same roof as me does not mean that I'm not in touch with him. I still am, and you know, he was there at my wedding. He's very much a part of my life and my brother's life, and vice versa. And actually, my dad is really, really cool. He's a very funny guy. My dad's a very charismatic person. Both of my parents are very like youthful and very, their soul is very childlike. They're both very talkative, very outgoing, very funny people, the both of them. They love to have a good time, a good conversation. That's a bit about my dad. So he's actually pretty cool person. What age did I move to Canada? I was born in Chittagong, and then we moved to Dhaka, which is the capital in Bangladesh. And then shortly after, when I was wee little, a year and a half old, myself, my mom, and my dad, we moved to New York, where we were for about 6 months-ish. Then when I was about 2, we moved to Montreal, which is when we moved to Canada. So we actually lived in Montreal first, and then I think just around my 4th birthday, or just after my 4th birthday, we moved from Montreal to Toronto, and this is where we've been living ever since. My height. So I am actually 5'4". I am 5 feet 4 inches, maybe 5'4.5", I think. I think I might be like 5'4.5". But funny enough, a lot of people think that I'm a lot taller than I actually am, and I think that's just because of like my proportions, like my body proportions, like how long my legs are, the ratio to like how long my limbs are and how long my torso is. So I'm actually just a very average heighted brown girl, just your very basic Desi girl out here, and I am 5 feet and 4 inches. Okay guys, welcome my husband, Saurav Sharma. How are you liking married life? Do you want to answer it first?
You go ahead.
I'm really digging it. I feel like there was a phase in the beginning where it was like an adjustment period for me, because I had never lived away from home. So like I always lived with my mom, and so just like coming to a new place and just being disoriented. But I feel like I'm gonna say this a lot coming out of this lockdown, that like we moved in together in October, and since then like a lot has happened, and then boom, we're in lockdown. Like it hasn't even been that much time, but like I feel like we're newlyweds in lockdown. Like I really think we got a really special experience as newlyweds versus like my friends or like other people. But yeah, now is like the sweet spot. Like this is where I'm at. Like I'm digging this. He's not going to work. I'm not going to work. We're both at home. I'm creating stuff, being happy. He's supporting me, bringing in the dough, you know.
That's all I do.
No.
Obviously, I'm not going to have that many words to explain how I'm feeling, but it's been a really good ride. I'd like to say that you're my favorite lockdown partner.
That's me. We should get t-shirts that say that.
No.
I'm his favorite lockdown partner. And then arrow. That's actually so cute. Been good.
So it's been good.
What?
Looking forward to the next many years.
The whole lifetime that we have. Fabulous. When do you guys plan on having a baby? Do you want to answer this?
I think when we feel we're ready. That's the most important thing. And when we feel we're in space and time in life where we think that yes, we should welcome another member into the family.
Agreed.
And yeah, so you'll find out when we find out.
Agreed. And I think we obviously every couple amongst themselves, very personally amongst themselves, have their own plan and timeline just to give it a little bit of a frame. And that's very private, and that's between two people. But then the rest is really up to fate. How many kids? This one's fun. Why are you angled away from me like you don't love me? He loves me, I swear. I promise I'm not holding a gun to him to make him do this. How many kids? I want lots and lots of kids, but then another part of me is like, oh my god, am I even going to be able to be a vessel for that many kids? And then am I going to be able to raise them? So in that retrospect, if life was a little bit easier, then I'd probably have 5 kids. But then I was like, okay, fine, let's have 3. And so I was just like, excuse me, it takes a lot of work to raise a kid. So I think we're ideally we'd want 2, but even 1 would be a blessing, right? That's what it is. Oh, these are good ones. Good question. Did your parents, for both of us, did your parents have difficulty accepting your relationship? I think, yes, they did. We have differences. We come from different countries. We come from different backgrounds. We come from different cultures. We are South Asian, though. I'm Bangladeshi. He's Indian. Our families come from different faiths. So yes, of course, it was expected that there would be some, not necessarily like difficulties as in like speed bumps and definitely reservations on the parts of our parents. But I will say that I thought it was going to be a lot more catastrophic than it actually was. And the whole time he told me, he was like, trust me, it's not gonna be that big of a deal. 5 years down the line, you're not even gonna remember this. You're gonna be loved. I'm gonna be loved. We're all gonna be a big happy family. I was like, this is gonna work out. Like, don't worry about it. And lo and behold, it did. And we're so grateful that it did. And so we had to fill a lot of gaps. And I think I think we were just really patient. But at the same time, I think the most patient were our parents. Like, I think we were patient as in like, it took us like, you know, like we had to really like mull it over for 2 years. But for our parents, like I think patience and tolerance wise, like they came around a lot quicker than we thought they would. And I think I'm like super grateful for that. I think I answered it for that. That goes for the both of our parents, right? So yeah, so I definitely had more anxiety through it than he did. He was just like, you know, like it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. I'm like, okay, is it though? Is it? Is it? Did you guys convert your religions for marriage? An answer your one.
No, we didn't. It depends on how you see religion and how you approach the whole idea and concept of it. I think we have very different yet similar approaches in a way of how we see religion, and neither my family or her family pressurized us in doing so.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we're grateful for that as well.
We like to add to what he said. It was definitely a question that was raised because, like, you know, two faiths, like two families of two different faiths were coming together. But it just wasn't something that for this dynamic, for this very personal dynamic, if you or your spouse or someone you know have converted religions and faiths for marriage, then that's amazing, good for you, right? But that's your very personal dynamic. And in our dynamic, it just didn't feel right. It just wasn't that, it just didn't feel right. And that spiritually and in terms of like values and morals and what we want to raise a family with and like those kinds of values and stuff were all aligned between us, even though we came from different cultures and, you know, different faiths and were brought up in different countries. I was brought up here, he was brought up in India. So it wasn't just a religious thing, it was also a cultural thing. That like everyone was concerned about. The first time I introduced him to my family and he had interactions with them and vice versa, they had known like we were just like, we came in with the same set of like family values. So I don't think converting was necessarily like a huge deal for us because our values aligned anyways. Wow, I talk so much. Thank you for coming, Baba. That's it, you guys. I know this video ran pretty long, but I hope I covered all the questions that you guys submitted. Thank you so much for submitting such awesome questions. There were a lot of things that really pushed me to my limits and a lot of things that really pushed me to answer things that I normally wouldn't have answered, and I really appreciated those experiences, so that was really good. Thank you so much for submitting all these questions, and that's it for today's video. Give this video a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to my channel. Oh yeah, and my husband was inaugurated in this video, like hello. You guys have seen him around in the vlogs and stuff, but hopefully we'll see more of him now that he's become a little bit more camera friendly, you know what I mean? We still have a couple of days left of daily videos for the month of May, so make sure you do not miss out on that. And then I've actually got another challenge coming up, so stay tuned for that, and I will see you guys tomorrow with another video. Thanks for watching, guys.